Good evening, everybody. I think we are live. You're all very, very welcome to this evening's webinar. It is the first in a series of upcoming webinars that will take place every third Tuesday at this time. So a big, big welcome to you all. A huge welcome also to Damien Griffen and to Andrew Hughes, who are tuning in from Galway and Kilkenny to be with us here tonight. The format of this evening is going to take, we're going to run through a presentation. We're going to have a look at two of Andrew's breeding mares that are part of his program at Ennisnag Stud. One offspring from both of the mares is currently in the care of Damien Griffen and his staff at Lissyegan stables. So we are going to get an opportunity to look through the breeding decisions and the fate of the Youngstock as part of this program. I just want to let you all know that you have a Q&A button at the bottom of your screens, and you can use this throughout. I will revert to the questions that come in at the end of the presentation time. So by all means, please send us in your questions as we speak. So I'm going to now attempt to share my screen with you all. One sec now. I have a delay on my presentation. One sec. One sec now. Seems to be stuck on the screen. Just bear with me now, one sec. We were meddling at the start. Okay, Andrew. First of all, ESI Paris. You might just, as an opener, give us a little bit of a background into how you came about to have her in your breeding program and the reasons by which she came to your attention and the interest that you had in her at the beginning.
Well, the first thing is her great-grandmother is a mare called Damien who jumped internationally with Mare Michael Spearbon. So from a pedigree point of view, she was very interesting. She was by Guidem, who's Guidem de Reval, so again, that was very interesting. And that's how she came to grab my attention. I got her through Cian O'Connor, and we bred her then, or we put her in training with Peter Maloney, and she was placed in the 4-year-olds in Cavan. And then we lost the mother after 3 filly foals, so we kept the 3 fillies to breed off, which are the 3 of them are on the farm, and we bred off them going forward.
But you also you had an interest in her dam line as well, in terms of the performance within the dam line. Yeah,
I think his girl jumped Grand Prix, Irish Grand Prix level. And then, as I say, Damien, her grandmother, jumped international. So,
and we just might have a little bit of conversation just around the mare herself, her type, her conformation, and her athleticism as the video is running, just in terms of the strengths and weaknesses as you see them.
Yeah, look, she was a little bit short of her neck and a little bit strong of everything, and could do with a little bit of length. A little bit short, compacted mare, but she actually rode with a lot of blood. She actually was quite as much blood as you wanted in her riding. So we sent her down to Peter Maloney. Peter liked her a lot. He said she was a little bit hot, but she was very good at what she did.
Okay, and just maybe talk us through her athletic traits.
Well, even though if you wanted to be critical, you'd say she was slightly plain, but when she does this, there's no plainness there, if you know what I mean. All her walk, her trot, and her canter were good.
And she's light across the ground. She uses her hind leg.
She does. She pushes off well, and she was strong, and she had a lot of power. She had a lot of scope.
Damien, what do you think of her?
Yeah, she's as Andrew said there, from looking at the picture, you'd think she's a little bit plain and a little bit heavy boned, but when you see the way she gets off the ground and her canter and her jump, she's very athletic at what she's doing. It's you'd actually think you're looking at two different horses from the picture and the video.
Mm. So I suppose, you know, your starting point with her was that you had a mare that you had, you know, good insight into her background, into her pedigree. Had you, Andrew, any insight in terms of her soundness at the outset?
I x-ray everything at 3 that I'm keeping, whether it's as a brood mare or whether it's to sell later on, as to keep long term, as to put into training with a person. So they're all x-rayed, and she x-rayed perfectly clean.
Okay. So the slide that's up at the moment just gives a little bit of an insight to start with in terms of the progeny that you've had. We're going to move first to look at this lady. She's with yourself, Damien, ESI China Girl. Andrew, just before we talk to Damien, maybe just in terms of your first choice of stallion was Conlon. Can you give us insight into, you know, what led you there and your reasoning at that point in time?
Well, the first thing I do with all the mares, all my first time in foal mares, maiden mares, I cover them with a proven sire, because then in 3 years' time I can't blame the sire for the problem. I can blame the mare. So that, look, in hindsight, maybe Conlon was a little bit strong, but I'm still happy with what I got. I think I have a good mare. Damien can give you more insight into that.
Yeah, so basically I think it's amazing when you have a look at the picture of the mother and of China Girl, how similar they both are, not taking Conlon into account. China Girl and the mother are very similar type to see them in the picture. As far as rideability and brain, Andrew said that the other was a little bit hot to ride after speaking to Peter Maloney, and China Girl is very similar in her way of riding on the flat. But when we get in and start jumping a track of fences, as you can see now from the video slide, her rideability is very easy. She changes gears, very, very simple. And I think she's very commercial in her way of jumping her fence. She doesn't overdo anything, but she's always consistently careful, whether it's over 110 or 130. Her rideability doesn't change, so it's going to actually make her very saleable in time. She needs another maybe year producing in the Irish horseport classes, and then she's going to be very, very saleable type.
And when would you expect that you'd be, how long would say of more of production would you expect to be looking at with a mare like this before she would be considered presentable to market? Okay, well, as you can see from the video in the Emerald, she's actually very presentable as it is. But we'd like to produce them for as long as we can. Myself and Andrew spoke, and Cian O'Connor, when we started this program between us, we spoke and we said we'd like to produce them for as long as we can and get the best ability out of the animal and turn them into as much money as possible, basically, because at the end of the day, it's a business. But even as it stands there, she's completely ready for a customer to come and try her, you know. And look, I suppose we're here to be educational and to be honest as well. If you were to kind of look at her in the general sense of what, you know, where would you pick weaknesses with her? So basically, her weaknesses, I suppose, if you want to be critical for educational purposes, she doesn't overexcite over anything over her fence. She just does what she has to. But for a rider, be it amateur or professional, when they get up on the mare, I know the feeling is very, very good. So the feeling is a lot better than sometimes a video can show. So if you take, for instance, jumping this vertical, she just does what she has to do. She just jumps in a nice normal way, but she always does it. But the feeling is a lot better than what she shows. So, for instance, I think it's more a type of mare that somebody really needs to come and try and get a feel of. So that's probably her maybe like weakest point is the way she shows on a video. And like, you know, she seems like she's a pleasant mare to ride, and she seems like the rideability is there, and that's such a big facet now when dealing with customers.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, we have 2 or 3 stable riders in the yard that are all very capable riders. But for me, I try have all of my riders, including myself, to keep swapping and changing the horses in the yard, so the horse is getting used to a different style and a different type of riding. And I think that makes it very, very important for customers coming. So I think that's something for people to keep in their head, that it's important that different people ride the horses in someone's yard being produced. And it really, really makes a difference when a customer comes to try the horse, that they're not just fixated in one way of riding, that 3 different people can ride 3 totally different ways.
Yeah, I think that's a very valid point, Damien.
Yeah. And there has been interest in this mare. Niall, my brother, who does the technical end of things, has sent videos out every now and then, and there has been interest from Sweden in this mare. But as Damien said, I think the optimum time to sell these ones is probably 7. So I think another year of, as you say, education won't do her any harm.
So I suppose moving on from her, then you changed direction with stallions, Andrew, and you moved to a different model, different type, and we're looking here at here on the left hand side at Dakar VDL. Why did you make that switch, and what was your thinking at that point?
When I saw the Progeny, I just thought it needed a bit more blood, a little bit more refinement, and a little bit better, maybe just a little bit better movements. So I think I got all that.
Just maybe talk to us a little bit about what you saw about Dakar, what you liked.
I thought he had a super technique. He was only about 6 or 7 at the time. I thought he was scopy. He had a good attitude, and I like Cardento. He's by Cardento, and I like Cardento as a sire. So I also like him as a sire of sires.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought it was interesting actually. 2 of the stallions that you used, you had Cardento as the sire. So yeah, that was clear. And you also had Nimerdor as your second sire on the sire line in 2 of the stallions.
I love Heartbreaker, which is Nimerdor. That line is very good. They're very quick reflexes, and they try very hard for you. They're very game, and they really want to jump for you.
Mm-hmm. So we can see that this guy is quite a different model to the previous mare, to ESI China. I'm just going to let this run here. What's your own feeling in terms of this particular model, in terms of what you like, what you don't like, Andrew?
Well, he's still a stallion, so I like nearly everything about him. He's sharp, he's good movements, he's very blood. He's a lovely size. He's 16'1", even though he doesn't look it in that video. He is 16'1". He has good X-rays. He's good mover, and I think he's a good jumper.
Okay. And would you pick weaknesses?
If you wanted to, he probably could be a little bit strong. He needs to develop behind the saddle a little bit. He just needs to develop a bit more power, but I think he'll do that. He's only 3.
Mm-hmm. Damien, you might talk about his jump when we see him going around here over the fence. So
basically, for me, I think I absolutely love when I see a video like this that a horse is able to trot. You can see Shane holding the rope very loosely, and it just shows the ability and the blood the horse has, that he can make a very good bascule in the air and jump with that much ability and scope just off a trot there. So if you see some loose jumping videos, they have to gallop around the turn with 3 people chasing them. It just shows you the athleticism and blood that this horse has. So I think it was actually a very, very good choice to change stallion with the mare, and it's after showing the ability and the blood that this particular horse has here.
Like when you look at this guy and you compare to China Girl, are we chalk and cheese? Are we
we're not chalk and cheese, but you can see the comparison when I explained about China Girl just doing what she had to do, but the feeling was very good. Whereas with this horse, anybody could see that the ability is there. So that's the difference between the two sires for a selling perspective.
And
like China Girl will be produced on a little bit more and will become, she already is very good to me, I think, but I think it will take another year of production, whereas this particular type of a horse, he's going to show all his ability when he's 4. And hopefully progress there, but you're going to see something special. You'd expect at 4 with the way he's jumping off the lunge there.
And Andrew, you had, previous to this guy, you had actually bred the mare to Dakar before that. So you had another female from that cross. Maybe.
Yeah, I had a lovely filly, ESI Hilton, and she was gorgeous. She was chestnut now, different color, but very similar in ways, and was exceptional jumper. And we've put her in foal. I like to take, I don't know whether she'll either stay in the broodmare band or we'll take one foal off her and put her back into training next year. So we'll take it by ear, but she's in foal to her own horse Bravor. I wanted to give our own horse a good chance, so she was exceptional jumper, exceptional model, very blood. So I put her in foal to her own horse. And
your own horse, to be clear, is a 3-year-old, yeah?
3-year-old Bravor, yeah, he's a nice horse.
Yeah, but like you are not somebody that has been afraid to use young horses. You have used 4-year-olds, you've used 7-year-olds. You're somebody who's happy to actually, for want of a better word, experiment with young horses and see how you get on as well. But
I go see them, which is a huge advantage.
Yeah.
I don't care what video you show. There's nothing like seeing them in the flesh. I've never used a young horse that I haven't seen in the flesh, and if I like them in the flesh, I think my mares are. I've got a system going that they're good enough to sustain any stallion, if you can understand me. So all I'm trying to do is refine them into a better model. And if they can jump like the mother, I know they'll sell. If they're a nicer model, then they'll sell better.
Okay. So you had a skip here then. It didn't go in foal, and we'll come back to that conversation again. But you changed stallion again, and you went to this guy, to Carrera VDL. While I'm opening up the video there, you'll just
similar sire lines. Again, he's a Cardento. So it's a similar line to Dakar. He's slightly smaller than Dakar, but has a lot of similar traits as Dakar. Very good with his legs, very careful. He's a nice horse, and I'd be very happy with what I got. And I think this horse is a very, very good sire.
Damien, would you care to make any comment on Carrera and how he jumps?
Yeah, I think he's actually a very, very good horse. I have a 7-year-old Carrera VDL, excuse me, mare myself, that I own with a client of mine in New York. So I actually think he's a very good sire. I don't know, was he used that often in Ireland, Andrew? I'm not too sure, but I've seen a few out of them, and they're very commercial types. Again, I say commercial types as in they're very good models, that they're most importantly, someone sees them and thinks they're a very good type of a horse, which to start off with has to be important for a point of view of a customer coming into a yard. You need a stylish horse that someone can see their head out over the door, and I think Carrera brings a lot of that kind of horse.
And in terms of, I suppose, Andrew, you had 2 years of using Dakar and then you switched to Carrera. Is it kind of, is that something that's in your head, that you would rather not to have too many years of using the one stallion? What was your thinking there? Yeah,
I just changed it around that year because she had 2 already. So I hadn't jumped them or anything. So they were like, when I was using those, they were probably 2 and 1 and when I was covering her with this one, so I wouldn't have jumped them at that stage. I don't jump them until they're 3, so I wouldn't have known how good. But I love the breeding of Carrera as well. VDL, he's out of a sister to Teagasc Boy, who jumped 140 herself, and I actually bought his brother at the auction in Dublin, the embryo auction.
We have a short video here of the yearling, so we'll get to see a little bit of movement, and just maybe, you know, your own perspective, Andrew, from your side of it, in terms of comparing this filly to those that have gone before. What's your thinking?
I think she falls in between the two. She falls in between the Dakar and the Cannon, in my eyes. She's might be a little bit straighter behind leg, but she's a nice blood lady and a good step and a good canter, and I'd be happy with her.
Damien, what do you think of her?
Yeah, it's very hard to alter there. And as Andrew said earlier about Chestnut Mare, but I think really that whole Chestnut Mare thing is a thing of the past. For me anyway, it's a thing of the past. I have no issues what colour they are once they're a good type and they jump. So it's very hard to fault her there now. Lovely big blood, canter and everything. She seems like a very good type.
And presently, Andrew, Paris, she in foal. She missed a year, didn't she?
She missed a year. She's in. I put her in foal to. She's in foal to Bravour. Again, to give Bravour. I think she'll suit. Bravour is a big horse. He's 16.3, and I think everything he has will suit her. He's a blood horse. He'd give her the bit of blood. So I think I'd be happy with what I've done.
And I suppose I just put it to Damien as the second opinion. Had Andrew not gone to Bravour, of the others, which direction would you have gone, or would you have changed again?
Dakar looks like a very, very good. The 3-year-old Andrew has there looks very, very good. But I think it's good to swap and change every year, because you're getting a different type of horse. Look at, obviously you could say if there's some horses that aren't good enough, or if some comes very good, you might say, how come I didn't go back and cover it with that sire again? But I think for the breeding program Andrew has, he has a lot of mares there. I think he needs to diversify exactly the way he's doing there and swap sires as often as he can, and it keeps things fresh and more interesting for everybody, really, for me, for him, and for his other customers that's coming in and out.
Okay, so that's the 3 together, and you know, like the coat really stands out there, doesn't he?
Yeah, and as you can see from the 3 images, like China Girl will probably be the plainest of the 3, and she's very similar to the mother. So I think they're getting more blood as the pictures go on. I think it's a very good choice what he's after doing in the last couple of years. You can see there's more blood and more rain and more type coming into each horse each year.
And like, it's been a learning process, I suppose, as well for you, Andrew, in terms of how she's crossing. And you've changed.
Yeah, you never really know until they have a foal. You never really know what they're going to throw you until they have a foal, and then you can, once they have their first foal, then you can modify a few things. And okay, she needs a bit more length, she needs a bit more height, she needs a bit more anything, whatever, prettier head, you know, and you can try and manufacture that. That's not always saying you'll get it, but you can try and get it a bit better.
Yeah, and I think just for the seminar, I think it's very important to see what Andrew is after doing here with the amount of blood putting in. He's after putting in to the mare each time he has chose a stallion. So I think it's not a good choice just to pick a stallion that isn't too far away from home. It's very good what Andrew has done there, put different blood into the mare, and you have 3 different types put in, improving all the time.
Okay, so look, we'll move on to mare number 2. SSH Cool Girl. She's a Holsteiner mare, born in 2006. Maybe, Andrew, you could introduce us to this lady, and I suppose, you know, just comment in terms of her pedigree and her mare line and how you came to her and what you liked at the outset, please.
She's the only mare that I bought as a brood mare. We got her off Brendan Doyle. He had her. Okay, she hurt herself at 3. She was a very good jumper. She's by a horse called Coleman, which I really, really like as a broodmare, who's Katago. And the dam line goes back to Eurocommerce New Orleans, who was 4th in the European Championships with Gerko Schroeder. So she has a dam line. She was a good-looking mare. Now, in the picture that she has, she's only due in a couple of weeks, and she puts an awful lot into her foals. It's very hard to keep condition on her but she picks up once she has the foal, so she'll be okay. But she's a real blood lady. She's 16-1, 16-3/4, 16-1. She has a good step to her, and she had a very good jump to her.
And I suppose, we must acknowledge she's heavily in foal here at the moment, and she's also recently had her as well, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're really just showing a very short clip for her. But in terms of the model of her versus ESI Paris, how would you compare the two?
She'd have more, she'd be a lot more refined. Prettier head, lighter bones, so she'd be a lot more blood.
Yeah. And obviously at the time that you came to her, she had previous progeny.
Yep.
Know the progeny? Had you seen them?
I'd seen the progeny, and they were nice. They were nice models. They had nice steps. Where they went, I'm not too sure now, to tell you the truth, because I followed on my own line rather than following what was there. So, but I was happy with her, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So she was crossed with Passion and Kanya McCann before you got her, and then after that, then the sequence was that you crossed her with Carrera, with Caprive and Oversea, who's a full sibling to Kanya McCann. You went with Sirocco Blue, Eldorado Van Zijak, which I can't pronounce terribly well, but we'll go with it. Carrera and Numero Uno. So that was your sequence of cover. So if we go back to the point in time in 2013 when you would have made your decision to use Carrera, what was your thoughts at that point, Andrew?
Well, I'd seen Carrera, I loved the dam line. I thought it would have been very, very blood, the Offspring, which I wanted. And I just thought he suited her. I thought he was a nice. She can be a little bit on the long side, and he's a little bit more compact. And I like Carrera, and I like Cardento, who's the sire of Carrera. So.
Mm-hmm. And as it turned out, it was so far anyway a fortunate mating, and she has done not so badly. We'll just run a video here, and Damien, you know this lady quite well, ESI La Luna, who is the winner of the 5-year-old consolation class in Lissyegan last year. You might talk to us a little bit about, the type, the model, the way of going, the athleticism.
Yeah, she's a very good type, a little bit hot to ride. Kevin Gallagher is riding her here in this video. He does a very, very good job on her. But for a mare that can be a little bit difficult to ride, she's unbelievably careful. I've seen her a lot all through the year. And she's very, very consistent, jumps some very good double clears. I seen her in Mullingar, she was clear. I seen her in Tattersall's clear, and obviously she won the consolation final in Ennisnag. So if you actually look at her printout for a 5-year-old specialist, it's very special, to be fair. And obviously to go out to Ennisnag and win the consolation final is extremely hard going. And that morning, I was there that morning watching, I think she won the class by maybe 2 or 3 seconds. She was serious that day. And she's a very, very pretty mare. Again, as we said about Carrera, he's breeding very commercial types. To stand beside her, she's very, very pretty. And
Andrew, when in the early years before, she was handed over to the riders, what was your impression as a 3-year-old? Had you visions already at that stage?
Yeah, she was very scopy, very blood. Again, I wouldn't have had the temperament issues with her, and it was only when we broke her that she was a little bit tense and a little bit hot. And Ollie Patrick with Greg and especially Kevin, who's ridden her the whole time, have done a fantastic job on her. She's qualified for Dublin. She was third in the final of the Horse Sport Ireland board class. She was unlucky in Lissyegan. She had a fence down and didn't get through to the final, but she won the consolation, 146 in it. So I'm very happy with the way she's going, but she still has a long way to go. She has to just be a little bit more willing to let us help her. She is a bit hot, and if we get that right, she could be very, very talented.
Like, obviously talent is one thing, but temperament and rideability has to be there to allow you to bring out all that talent.
100%.
Yeah. So just while that video, we let it run away to the end there, but you changed breeding direction then again after that, and you went back to Capri Van Oversea. Just talk to us there and where that Offspring is now and what it's doing.
A slightly stronger model, very easy to ride, very simple to do things, and we sold it to Sweden. Not a top class horse, but very functional, very careful, very easy ride, and there's a young girl riding it in Sweden at the moment doing the age classes, so I'm very, very happy with it. Going lovely. They've sent us pictures and rosettes and stuff like that, so they're very happy with it.
Okay. And then we're going to concentrate again on this guy, because this horse is actually in the care of Damien presently, but you made a decision in 2015 to cross the mare with Sirocco Blue. Talk to us about that point in time, Andrew.
Yeah, just thought the mare could do it maybe a little bit more substance, a little bit more power, and I thought Sirocco Blue, look at, he jumped in the Olympic Games, he's a top horse by Mr. Blue, so I thought he would suit her, more power, and I think he's given her that. Again, Damien will fill you in more. He's ridden him and done things like that, so he'll give you a bit more information on the rest of it. But I think I've got a really nice cold blood, power, step. I think I'm very, very happy with the model I got, so, and the jump. So it's a matter of temperament and rideability and what the rider thinks from then on in.
Mm-hmm. Damien, your comments on Sirocco Blue as an individual?
Obviously, as Andrew says, Sirocco Blue doesn't really need a lot of introduction. He's all on paperwork. He's been a fantastic horse at 5-star level himself. I know Richard Burns had a very nice Sirocco Blue a few years ago in Ireland, so I wouldn't have actually seen a whole lot of them until Andrew brought up the 4-year-old that we currently have now. But Sirocco Blue himself was very special.
Mm-hmm.
The 3-year-olds, as you can see from the picture here, our 4-year-old, sorry. So this 4-year-old, unfortunately, we've no video of him riding under saddle, but the horse, he's just on a break now, on a holiday, because I don't really do a whole lot with my 4-year-olds. I usually break them at 3, give them a few little training shows, and throw them out for the summer then when we're competing the older horses. But he's a very nice type here. The rideability is very good. Realistically, he probably should have more done, but the rideability was so easy that we didn't have to be honest with you. He broke very easy. I'm very happy with the choice that Andrew made going to Sirocco, because he feels extremely careful. There's lots of scope there, and again, myself and my 2 stable riders are all able to get up on this horse and jump him over a track of fences, and he's only broken, and he's only a 4-year-old.
And if you were to pick any, we'll say, weaknesses about the horse at this point, what would you be feeling?
Right, his only weaknesses to me at the moment is he's a bit slow to develop. That's it. Canter is very, very balanced when you're on him. You'd actually think it's a 5 or 6-year-old horse when you're on him, and he's canter, and he feels very powerful off the ground when you jump him. But it's just these diesel tank gets emptied out very quick. That's the only fault I have on him, and it's only immaturity at the moment. It isn't a fault. with the field of grass he's in that'll build up the horse. So I actually can't fault this horse. I think if the listeners take note of his name, I think this could be a very competitive and a very good horse over the next 2 or 3 years in the Irish horseboard classes.
ESI Hamilton. Yeah, and I suppose you make a salient point as well in terms of, you know, the approach with 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds and working with the horse as opposed to working with a timetable.
Yeah. I think from a professional's point of view, I think it's to an extent it's a little bit crazy to work to a timetable with 4 and 5-year-olds. I think you really have to work with each individual horse. Okay, this year we would have said maybe we might try for Dublin, we'll do this, we'll do that, but the fact of it is we broke him and he was a bit weak, so there was no point aiming for any of that. So you just have to go with how the horse takes the work. The horse took the work perfectly, but the energy levels weren't there. So for me, I think that horse will do an awful lot better out eating grass than he'll do being educated in the stable. And
maybe could I just ask, just because obviously this photograph, I kind of feel like it maybe isn't doing the horse the absolute justice in way of it's standing up in terms of the hind leg, you know, just maybe a comment on that, even one of you, Andrew or Damien.
He has a very good hind leg.
Yeah.
He's actually a picture of a model. He's a model of a horse in my eyes. He's got the size. He's got a great shoulder. He's got a great arse. He's got a great hind leg. He's very correct. He's got a pretty head. He's grey. And to me, he has a great trot and a great canter. And he has blood, and he has everything you need in a horse. And I agree with Damien. I think he's a horse, not so much as a 4-year-old, but from 6-year-old on, I think he's a horse to watch out for.
Yeah.
Okay. So then you had an empty year in between.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah.
And then you made another stallion choice change, and you moved to Eldorado. Take us back to that time, that moment.
Okay, again, I just the first Carrera wasn't massive as a young mare, but she actually ended up 16.3. But I just wanted to get a bit of size into the mare, and Eldorado definitely gives you size. The mare was always super, super, super careful. So I just wanted to give her a bit more size, a bit more power, and Eldorado definitely gives you that. He gives you size and he gives you power. So that was my thinking there.
Mm-hmm. And obviously Eldorado is Clinton, Toulon, Calypso 3. So yeah. You like the pace as well, yeah. Yeah,
and the mare, like the Toulon mare was a very good mare. Mm-hmm. She was a very good mare.
Damien, have you any comments on Eldorado?
Yeah, Eldorado at the moment for the last few years has been very, very popular. The continent, out in the continent in Belgium and Holland and places, he seems to be the talking stallion for producers buying young horses too. So, and like you can actually see him jumping that red oxer there, like he has so much power off the ground, and he's not even trying blood. He has blood and power, and he's very, very good type. So yeah, it's again, it was a good choice of stallion. These are the stallions that you are expecting to breed proper show jumping horses that we were all aiming for.
So Andrew, again, you very kindly took a bit of a video clip of the colt out in the field. You might just talk to us a little bit about your impressions about this particular animal, please.
He's a very good looking horse. If you wanted to be critical, he could do it a little bit more length. And a little bit more length and everything, maybe in his neck and his whole way, and even in his actions. But he still has he has a good trot, he has a good canter, but it just maybe a little bit more length is the only criticism I could say. He's a very pretty horse. He stands out. Every time you go into the field, before they do anything, people ask what is that fella, you know.
He has that kind of look at me quality about him.
He does, and he's very inquisitive. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if you were to I suppose, you know, compare back with the previous progeny. Were you happy when you met this guy, shall we say?
Yeah, I have no criticism. He's very correct. I haven't x-rayed him yet because he's only 2. I haven't jumped him yet, again, because he's only 2. But I'm happy with what I have so far. I'll tell you more
inside of 12 months.
At the end of the year, at the end of the year in October, between October and March, I'll have him jumped.
Yeah, when he goes to school.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Okay, so you then made a switch back to Carrera, and you have a yearling now on the ground by Carrera out of SSH Cool Girl. I'm not going to run a video again now for Carrera, but you might just talk to us. We have a very, very short clip here of this lady.
Yeah, again, because of La Luna at this stage, she'd shown us as a 3-year-old what she was doing. I really, really liked her, so I have her now. The plan is at the moment is to keep this filly, but she has to pass 2 or 3 criteria before that. I like the model, so she's passed that number 1 criteria already. I like the pedigree. Number 2 criteria. Number 3 is x-rays. Number 3 is jump, and number 4 is x-rays. So she has to pass all those. But if she's a good jumper and she passes her x-rays, she'll be kept as a grouper.
Mm-hmm. And Damien, what's your impression of her? I know you don't get an opportunity to see a whole lot here, but your initial impression, shall we say?
I seen her myself down in Andrew's farm during the winter. I often pop down to see a lot of the young horses, and yeah, for me the standout would be straight away the way she walks. She's got a lovely big, like blood strong walk, and I really, for me, when I'm buying her, having a look at a horse around like that, I think that a walk is a very big thing. She's very light off the ground in her walk. She's got a very good rein in her neck, and a good back. It's at the moment it's very hard to falter.
Mm-hmm. And I suppose in terms of the model relative to the previous and relative to ESI Hamilton, how would you rate there?
Yeah, well, I think they're all very similar in their types. They're all good big blood types with good walks, and they're good straight movement. She has a very good trot there as well. So I think the mother has an awful lot to answer for in this particular case. Like, she's breeding very similar types, good straight horses, blood, plenty of blood and plenty of size.
Mm-hmm. And I suppose, you know, if we look at, you know, ESI La Luna, at the time that you made a decision, I suppose, to switch back in your 2018 covering Andrew, you at that point ESI La Luna was 4 years of age. So, you know, you had some insight at that point, and it was probably a very clever decision on your part at that stage to have switched back to Carrera. Yeah,
well, I had the feedback from Greg too, who's a great judge. So look at that gave me an insight even more. So the choice was very easy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I suppose, you know, in roundup of the youngsters, if we think about the yearling from ESI Paris, and we think about the yearling here, how would you compare the two of those?
Slightly different. The Carrera one is a lengthier filly. This filly will end up a big filly. She was born late, but she'll end up a big filly. This is probably will be a prettier filly. Slightly more blood,
mm-hmm.
But so would the mother. So they get that a little bit from the mother. So she'll be a prettier filly. But I just love that Paris line. I think it's going to be a fantastic line for me. I'm having, with her sisters and everything like that, I'm having great success. I think that it'll be a really successful line.
Mm-hmm. And Damien, from the perspective of the two horses that you have in work, and you know the insight that you have of the youngsters there, which is your favourite?
For me,
which one will you spend most on?
For me, I think an awful lot of the Sirocco Blue. I think he's very special, even though we don't have a massive amount done with him. but everything we've done with him, he has answered all the questions. His rideability is good. His brain is very good. He's a sharp horse, but he still has a good brain, which I think for a top horse, they have to be sharp. If a horse isn't sharp, I don't think he's able to make it to the very top of the sport, because they have to be hardy and they have to be sharp to be a top horse. And but yet the rideability is very good. So I'd go with Sirocco Blue.
Yeah, just maybe give a confirmation to me that I have stopped sharing there. So your presentation is gone. Yeah. Just while I'm having a little bit of a look at what Q&As have come in there, just talk to us a little bit, maybe if you could open it up, Damien, in terms of the arrangements that you have, the different arrangements. You have horses in livery, you have horses in partnership situations, and I suppose the mutual benefits and the pros and cons of those kind of relationships. Maybe just have a little bit of a discussion around that, just while I'm having a look at what questions have come in.
Okay. To try and keep it simple, I suppose we've 35 in work. I try and have half liveries, and then the rest we'd own ourselves or in partnership. So I think for me, going forward in the sport to try and stay in Ireland, I think I need to do a lot of partnership deals and own a good lot of horses, because obviously a lot of people go abroad, and I would prefer to be able to stay here in Ireland and produce them here. But I think partnership deals can work both ways. It can work very, very for the owner as well as the man producing them, because basically the likes of Andrew, who would be hoping to produce a horse until they're 7, it's expensive for them. And obviously it's expensive. How do we put it? It's very expensive for the owner to put a horse in training from 4, 5, 6 to 7 and spend 4 years on the horse before getting a customer and hopefully getting a good payday. And for the producer, it's hard to buy really, really nice, good 3 and 4 year olds. So I think it works both ways to chat with owners and see what kind of mutual agreement we can come up with to do a share. So it cuts down on the cost of the owner, and it helps the producer to come across very good horses and not have to pay a fortune for them.
Andrew, maybe your insight?
Yeah, well, myself and Damien actually have a half share in the Sirocco Blue. We did a deal. Damien saw him when he was 3, really liked him, and so we own half him, and then the Paris is on livery. So they're two different. The two of them are in different, getting the same treatment but in different things. My number one thing on doing a partnership is, number one, you need a top guy to send it to. That's number one, and number two, that they're honest, and number 3, that they're. I give them full control. Once they go out of the yard here, they know best at that stage. I know best when I have them here. They know best. So I put no pressure on them at all as to, I want to be in Dublin as a 4-year-old. I want to be in Dublin as a 5-year-old. I want to be in Ennisnag as a 5-year-old. There's no pressure. Whatever the horse and whatever. And I will also listen. I will make up my own mind as well, but I will listen very carefully when they say, look, it's time to pull the plug here. This thing isn't good enough. It works both ways. This thing is a superstar and this thing isn't good enough for 2 different things. So you got to pull the plug quick. And I think that's effective from both points of view.
Yeah.
I think trust in the relationship is critical, and 2-way trust both ways.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's possible to be in partnership in any form of business, whether it be equestrian sport or any other business, if you don't trust the other party. Like, it's not possible to. Myself and Andrew have some horses that didn't work out, and we just beat the horse out. We had some horses that have worked and we've made money. So it has to work. As Andrew says, there has to be trust, and it has to work both ways. If I ring Andrew and tell him it's not good enough, or if he tells me it's not good enough, we both have to be in agreement. And we have been in agreement on both situations, with horses that have been good and horses that haven't. And it's not, for me, and I'm sure Andrew is the same, it's not worth going in partnership with somebody that you don't trust 100%, because there's so many horses coming along the line, and things go right and things go wrong. Like, we aren't doing this seminar telling the best story all the time, because it just doesn't happen that way. There has to be ups and downs in everything.
Yeah. I have a couple of questions in here, guys. I'll try and throw them out while we still have time. First one here is, what's your view on taking embryos with the mares before they start their competition career? I'll put that to Andrew.
Yeah, if they're good enough. It's an expensive process, so you'd want to make sure that they're good enough to to take the embryos because they are, but I would agree with that. I sometimes take a foal off them before they go into sport. So yeah, no problems.
So I have another question here now. You mentioned you tend to x-ray progeny. However, there may be some cases when x-rays aren't perfect. In the case of OCD or chips, what makes you decide whether to operate or not? Would you keep a mare that jumps well with a great pedigree on paper in a broodmare band, even if evidence of OCD?
No.
That's the question.
And I talk to the vet and I get his opinion, but if they have irregularities like that, they usually breed it. So if you find it hard to sell the mother, you'll find it hard to sell the foal.
How important is it for a broodmare to have her own competition record? This is to you as well, Andrew, I guess.
None, not to me. I make my own call. I jump them all at 3 and they go and foal at 3. Because I'm wasting years competing them and cost of competing them if I'm keeping them as a broodmare, and it's too expensive for me to do embryos. I have 25 broodmares. I don't need any embryos really.
Yeah.
And I think that's a probably two-way thing for Andrew. He'd be keeping the foals, so it isn't that important. For somebody that could be thinking about selling foals, maybe to have a record on the mare is probably an important thing. So it just depends on where the question is going and the person that has the mare.
Yeah, that's a good point, Damien. I'll throw this one to you, Damien. You're aiming at horse sport age classes. Do you think there are a lot of pressure on a young horse? And I don't think that's necessarily just in horse sport age classes. That's across the age classes.
I think it depends on the rider, to keep it short and simple. A professional rider, amateur rider, any rider. If they think the horse is capable, if the horse gets a bit of a fright, give them a couple of weeks at smaller classes. I don't think anyone should say it is or isn't. Every horse is completely different. If you have a big scopy, rangy horse, he's able for it. If you have a little horse that might be a little bit over careful, it might be a bit too big as a 5-year-old, and they could cope with it perfect as a 6-year-old. So I think it depends on the horse. Yeah.
Another one for you, Andrew, here. You use young stallions. Are you looking at the individual? I think we kind of, I suppose you answered that in the sense of you like to go and look at them. Would you forgive an unproven stallions page, or does a young one need to have a backup, like a backup pedigree if it's unproven in the big sport? Yeah,
I love a stallion with a pedigree. I think it's very important. I think it's nearly as important as the mare. He'd want to be exceptional, and I mean exceptional, for me to use him as a young horse if he doesn't have a pedigree to go with it.
Yeah, I think that's really apparent in the stallions that we've reviewed here this evening. You know, the sires or grandsires, they've been World Cup competitors, Olympic competitors, etc. You choose young stallions, but they have very strong back lines. Yeah. Sorry, now I'm trying to read these before I throw them out.
Hippomundo did a very good, when you're thinking there for a second, yeah. Hippomundo did a very good study on Lissyegan 5, 6 and 7-year-olds and where they ended up. So if people wanted to go to that site, they could look up that. It was very interesting.
Yeah, just I'll throw another one out while I'm reading a few here, Andrew, for myself. You know, like obviously, I mean, there's the side of the love and the passion. You clearly love what you do. You both love what you do, and you clearly love, you know, breeding. But you know what's coming from me. There has to be a commerciality to this as well too. And you know, obviously, you're spending money on stallion feed. You're spending money on production costs and vets, etc., X-rays, all that. Where's the euro sign for you at the end of it?
Yeah, they have to be. You have to. It's a business at the end of the day. I'm not starving yet, so I'm not going to do that. Look at we can. It's an industry that's very up and down. So look at, you've got to take the good times with the bad times. But I think I've got enough progeny here and good progeny that will be able to. You know, you're going to get more bad ones than good ones, if you know what I mean. That's law of averages. There's no way you can do that. So look at, no, we're going okay, and there is money to be made in it. It's not we aren't broke.
It's not all a one way out. Yeah.
No, it's not. No, there's definitely money. Done the right way, there's money in it.
Question here: how long do you keep the broodmare for? As in, how many foals would you breed from one broodmare before keeping one of her progeny? And how do you make a decision on which progeny you keep as the next broodmare line? That's a couple of questions in one.
Yeah, I give the broodmares 3 foals and then I sell them. I sell 10% of all my broodmares every year. So I'd sell about 3 broodmares a year. I take the bottom 3 and I sell them, regardless of price. They're sold, they're out the door. And then I always keep 1 filly. I always have 1 filly in reserve in case anything happens to mare. So I'll always keep a filly until a better filly comes along out of that family. And I will keep the best filly out of the family, not the filly that I can't sell. The best filly will be kept. And if a better filly comes along, I'll keep the 2 or I'll get rid of the other one and keep that one. So, but I always try and keep 1 filly just in case something happens, the mare.
Mm-hmm.
I keep the line then.
There's another question here. Do you think people are falling into the pitfalls of big name stallions to potentially get money for a foal, but the fashionable stallions may not suit the mare?
Yeah, if you're selling as foals, it's a no-win situation, because to really make money, they have to be by one of 5 horses nearly, and that's just a commercial decision. If you're breeding like I am, to breed a show jumper, you have a lot more things to take into consideration.
Do you prefer to have, I'm sorry now Damien, there's quite a lot of interest here to Andrew and the broodmare choice. Do you prefer to have a mare with plenty of blood to breed, or do you prefer to have a mare with plenty of blood or breed in the blood with a stallion? Sorry.
I prefer to have the mare. It's much easier. Pick a horse then. You can pick any horse you want then. Whereas if you have a plain mare, you're limited to a very short supply of stallions.
Okay. As an aspiring young breeder, what is the best way to source a broodmare to kickstart the home breeding program?
I did it as when I originally started out, I did it as foals. I bought foals because I don't care what anyone says, nobody can try out a foal. You're getting if you're doing a 3-year-old, they can be set up, they can be this, they can be that. If you're getting a broodmare that's had 3 or 4 foals, they're obviously not good enough. So but it's a long wait. That's the only thing. You'd want to be young.
We all still are, Andrew. Okay. Look at guys, I think it's been phenomenally interesting speaking to you. I hope our listeners have found the webinar interesting. In conclusion, I guess, I suppose the points that are made around the choice of broodmares, how important it is to have athletic and blood mares to begin with, that there is a good starting ground on paper to begin with to back them up. Very careful choice of stallions. Like you said, Andrew, you don't know at the outset what you're going to get until you have your first foal on the ground, and then you need to, what you're doing after that and refine, and close interaction with your riders and listening to riders and looking at the opportunities that there are there to engage in partnership situations and different kinds of business models. They are there. They just need a little bit of investigation and sit down and working it out. I am really, really grateful to both of you for giving up your time and your energies and taking the video clips during the week and all the rest for us. I'm also really, really grateful to my colleague who's in the background, Mark Gibson, for his assistance in getting us on air, keeping us on air. And I just would also like to announce that we will be back here again in the same place, wherever that is for all of you. And I have invited Camilla Spears and Sam Watson to join us in 3 weeks' time. So we will have a different subject matter, but I very much look forward to that as well. So good night to you all, and thank you very, very much for joining us.
Yep. Thank you.